Okay, everybody, let's talk about this paper outline and the final paper a little bit more. I've added a sample of a paper that I did many years ago, just to give you an idea of the layout of an APA paper. It was one I did earlier in my writing, so it may not be perfect, but it's pretty close. It got a good grade, so I'll just take it and run with it. The other examples I had were much, much longer. One of them 170 pages of writing. Didn't think you'd want to go drag through that, so we'll take this one and run with it. So what you see on the screen here is, hopefully you have the form that's in the shell this week. It says reflection paper form. Print that out and have that at the ready as we discuss this. So if you want to stop now and print that out, that's great, and come back. But you'll need that in order to understand what we're going to go over now. So first thing you do with this reflection paper is you do a cover page, and you'll see it in the sample. It's centered in the upper half of a page, and it has a header on it. There's instructions here on how to write the header. The cover page, the big mistake people make in an APA paper is they put too much information. The only thing that goes on the cover page besides the header and the page number is the title of the paper, your name, and the name of the institution. No course numbers, no instructor name, no dates, no semester numbers, anything like that. Title of the paper, under that centered your name, under that centered Slippery Rock University. That's all you'd put on that title page, and then that part is done. The next part of the paper, okay, you've got your cover page. Now you're going to a new fresh page, right? It'll have a header on it, and you write the word abstract centered at the top. And I center single space my abstracts. I've been taught to single space. I do believe the new edition of APA says double spaced on the abstract, so either way I'll accept. But no more than 150 words. And again, I think there's a change. It says 150 to 250. Look, this is a very short paper. We can stray a little bit. I don't want you to write 150 words just to write a short paper. But the abstract basically says, it tells the reader what you're going to write about. And abstracts are very important when you start to do research, because when you start to look for research articles that might apply to what you're looking for, you read the abstract, and it'll give you an idea of whether you should continue reading or whether the subject is just way outside of what your research project is. So the abstract would be, this is a paper about my experience in CSS 240 at Slippery Rock University in the fall 2019 semester. During the semester, I found X number of things interesting and also found some things that could be improved in the course, and that's it. That's your abstract, right? It's about 150 words. That's probably 4 or 5 sentences, no more than a half a page, and then you're done with the abstract. Then you move on to the next page. So the abstract goes on a page by itself. Then you go on to really writing the paper. Again, you have a header on your paper with the page number, and the header is required by APA. Now you're writing an introduction, and your introduction is going to be very similar to your abstract. Because they have two different functions, really. People read abstracts to try to sort through information very quickly. Your introduction is going to be very similar. It can't be exactly the same, okay? Change up some of the words a little bit. But you'll write an introduction about what your paper is going to be about. That's really starting the normal part, if you will, of writing a paper, and nothing goes on separate sheets until you get your references now. Now it's all writing a standard paper, starting with the introduction. So here's the part that you're going to fill out in this form and submit back to me in the Dropbox this week. And your first reflection, one part of the course I enjoyed and learned from was, and 2 or 3 sentences about what that was. They don't have to be complete sentences. You'll be able to clean them up later even. But what are the 3 things? Remember, you're going to have 3 things that you learned in the course that you thought were beneficial to you, and I'm hoping that everybody can find 3. But first, identify what they were and why you found them interesting. Then, in the next paragraph, okay, of your paper, and in this form, you're going to fill out and write in here. You're going to type right onto this form, make a copy of it. Go ahead and write. It's not a closed format Word document, so you can open it right up. Write in the first part, the first thing, 1 or 2 sentences of what you enjoyed and why you enjoyed it. Second one is describe the concept. Okay, so if you're going to talk about background checks, I enjoyed the conversation on background checks. I think it's something that every manager should be familiar with. That would go here. Describe the concept. Background checks are normally done by an HR department in concert with the security department. We have to understand that background checks are not an evaluation of acceptability, but rather just a statement of facts. And then there's an evaluation by others to determine whether or not the person's suitable for the job. Those are the 3 or 4 sentences that go in here. And then finally, after this part, tell us how you might incorporate this into your daily practice. So, as a security manager, I would work very closely with HR, have them understand, and we would write up a formal process about forwarding any background checks that had derogatory information to the security manager so that I might use my contacts with the local police and the courts to determine the context and to understand whether the candidate is actually acceptable or whether they should be rejected. This week you're going to write in 1 or 2 sentences about the particular thing you enjoyed in the course. You're going to describe that thing in 3 or 4 sentences. And then in 3 or 4 sentences, you're going to tell me how you will use that in your practice. And then you're going to do it again with another thing that you found enjoyable or that you learned from or you thought was interesting about the course. Tell me 1 or 2 sentences what that was and why you found it enjoyable or why you thought it was beneficial. Then you're to describe it. Tell me what you know about it in 3 or 4 sentences. I want you to write this as if you're talking to someone who never heard of this concept before. So make it simple, make it very direct, succinct, right? And then again, tell me what you're going to do to use that piece of information in your practice as a security manager. And then go figure, you're going to do it a 3rd time. So 3 things that you found interesting about the course. Your first reflection, 2nd and 3rd reflections, right? Write out another 1 or 2 sentences. Describe it to someone who's never heard of it before, what it really means, what you're talking about. And then 3 or 4 sentences about how you might apply that in your role as a security manager. So you'll do that 3 times. This week you will fill out the numbers 4, 5, and 6, the first, 2nd, and 3rd reflections, and put information under each one of these 3 questions about what you're going to talk about. The reason I'm asking you to do this is so I can look at it, and I will look at them every day. I will sit down as they come in and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to make sure everybody's got the right idea here. It really isn't to tell you whether or not you found something enjoyable or whether you didn't find it enjoyable. That's not the process. The process really is, do you understand how we're going to put the paper together? And if you've got stuff in there that makes sense, then will be a thumbs up. And I suggest everybody's going to probably get this pretty quickly back and everything's going to be good to go. So you've done your cover page and your abstract and you've done your intro and your 3 reflections. Now you're coming down to the wire, and I want you to make 1 suggestion on how you might improve the course. It's okay to be critical. If there's something you didn't like about either my teaching style or the material, or you thought we should have added something else in there, just let me know what it is. We get the course evaluation very early in the semester. I don't think it's as helpful then. I'm looking for some input so that when I write the course next time, I can make it better, and I want to make it better every time. So make 1 suggestion on how you think we can improve the course. Along the same lines, you'll do another paragraph after your suggestion about how the course might improve, and to tell me about whether you thought the course was beneficial. And I really want to understand, this is quite helpful to me, and it's also part of any reflection paper really, about whether you gained what you thought you should gain. And so if you're a Homeland or Corporate Securities major, I'd like you to tell me whether or not the course itself fit in with your other courses, whether or not perhaps I said something that was contradictory to what others say. And I need to go back and understand what the context was of what they said so that we're on the same page. I don't have the benefit of sitting in each of your classes to understand what other professors tell you. And I understand how frustrating it might be that one professor tells you to do something one way and another says another. But I really do want to understand that, especially from the corporate and Homeland Security majors that are taking our CSS courses so that I can understand if this fits in well, in your opinion, with the other courses in the program. Conversely, if you're not a Homeland or Corporate Security major, if you're a safety major, a cybersecurity major, we have an English major, we have several other majors in the room, I do want to understand whether or not it added value to your major. We've all taken courses because we have a certain number of electives to take, and we say, hey, this sounds like it might be interesting. So we take that course. But I would also like to understand whether or not it added any value to you as a cybersecurity major, as a safety major. I can see that tie in. As an English major, perhaps the writing portions, I don't know. But whatever your major might be, let me know whether this was perhaps interesting but not really related at all, and I don't know how I'll use it, that's okay. Or I didn't find it interesting at all, or I was interesting and I might use some portions of it in my major. So I'm just trying to get a good feel. 3 or 4 sentences. Again, these are all little bits and pieces that add together to make a paper. And finally, you go to a fresh last sheet of paper. It's on its own page again, so you finished out, you've done your closing, and the paper itself is written. You need to put in your references. And you will need to reference something in each one of those reflections because I need to know where you got the info from. So, and let's try not to make it all lectures, gang. I would suggest that anything less than 3 references in your paper won't be supportable. But it doesn't mean that you have to have 1,000 references. It's not a long paper. So you're going to put the word references at the top and centered. You don't use works cited. I know a lot of you have been using works cited. That is an MLA thing, and in other majors that may be the writing style that you use, but in the sociology side of things, we use APA. And so that's one of those things you'll have to move back and forth as you go through your academic career. But in APA, it's the word references in the top and centered, and then write your APA references. There are some APA reference generators online, and I feel even bad mentioning this, that you go in and you put in the title, it'll ask you to fill in the blocks, and it'll generate the reference for you. I just found those to be really clunky, and some of them aren't really good. Some of them haven't been updated with the latest and greatest in APA. You can give them a try if you want. I know people that really like them. I just found them to be a pain in the butt, quite frankly, and they add frustration to me. But if you want to do that, go ahead and just put in APA reference generator into Google, and it'll probably come back with 3 or 4 where it asks you to put in the name of the author, the year it was written, the title of it, whether it's a book, an article, a lecture, or whatever, and where you found it, and it puts it all together and makes a APA reference for you. Certainly it's not cheating because it's available to you. One thing though, when you're referencing me, this is how it starts. Last name, first initial, middle initial, the year, and anything that I've given you in this course I wrote in 2019. I do have a couple articles that I wrote for magazines and things that I use in other courses, so you have to be careful of that. But then it's the title of the article, the writing of the lecture, and the place it can be found, right? It's standard. But it's not BD, it's not DB, it's Wisniewski, Brian P, BP. So if you could just do me that favor, that would be great. And I will be looking for these to be dropped in the Dropbox over the next week during this week. But if you drop them in early, I will go to the Dropbox each day to look for the outline that you filled out, right? The 3 or 4 places in this document where I want you to just use the document, put in your own words in those spaces that were provided there on the 3 spaces for your reflections and the improvements and things like that. And then I will make sure you're on the right page. I will shoot you a note back saying good to go. And then you go on and put the paper together, and we will work together as that's going on between now and the end of the course. With that, have a great week, and we will talk soon.